Good morning, friends, wherever you are, and I hope you are having a cup of your favorite beverage, wherever that is. Oh, yeah. So welcome to today's Cichlids and Coffee live stream. And yes, maybe the name should change because it is so much more than just Cichlids now. But for now, it is still Cichlids and Coffee. I am sitting in this position today so that perhaps you can get a glance at my beautiful Autopharynx tetrastigma that was just added to the tank. He's starting to hang out in the crowd as opposed to hiding in the plants. And I can get him to, he's over in that corner over there. He'll come over here in a minute. But he does use the tall plants for line of sight break. But he is participating in the feeding, getting right in the middle of it all, which is a very good sign, even though he is noticeably smaller than all the other fish. So hopefully we'll catch a glimpse of him a couple times during the live stream, and hopefully they'll behave during the live stream. Sometimes they'll put on a little show for you of aggression, but in particular the fire hap, who is going through a little breeding dance at the back of the tank back there. I don't know what has triggered that, but we'll see where that goes. Usually it's the Buccochromis rhodesii yellow, this big beast right here. Oh no, I'm sorry, that's the Notitania. Notitania's gotten a lot bigger. He's over there. The Buccochromis Notitania, the Buccochromis rhodesii yellow is the one that normally chases everyone around and asserts himself. Anyway, there you go. Heads up. African cichlids, never a dull moment. So who do we have in the house here? We've got a good crowd carrying on a lot of conversations. Michael in the house. Robin is here. Michael in the house. Let me see. Michael Lotnero and Michael Poulot. The French spelling of Michael. Thank you for correcting me on that. I really appreciate it. Proverbs in the house. Ron and Don and Sharon. Frolic, howdy to you. Tyler's here. Tyler, my immediate answer is yes, but you've got other factors, right? How heavily stocked is the aquarium? How much pressure are you getting out of that air pump? So several moving parts, but on a 15-gallon, yeah, you've got surface breakup. You're going to have some oxygen in there. Also, what temperature are you running the tank at? I mean, all those factors. I mean, the hotter the tank, right, the harder it is to dissolve oxygen in the water. So it's a lot of moving parts. But I would say my immediate answer is yes. If you have an air pump on a 15-gallon, you're going to have oxygen. As Mike, I see Mike's comment depends on a myriad of factors. Yeah, a lot of moving parts, Mike. What Mike said. Wally's Freshwater's in the house. Ex-colleague Kev is here. Hi, Kendall. I did get your email. I hope you got my response. Vernon Miles just had a tank crash. Ouch. We're going to get into that. That is today's topic. All right, more folks are coming on. Hey, Whip, good to see you here, buddy. My moderator extraordinaire. Tanks and Fish, good afternoon to you. Buddy Lee in the house. Love the channel. Thank you. Newbie here. Well, welcome. Welcome to the channel. I appreciate you. Jenny B in the house. Hello to you, Jenny B. All right. Michael's excited. He just got a Vieja black belt. Nice. With red markings on the fins. Very, very cool. I love viejas. Yeah, you should be fine, Tyler. Now, that firemouth is probably going to need more room once he puts on size. I mean, you can start him off at a 10 to 15, but after a while, he's going to want a little more territory. I mean, you could probably keep him in a 40. Fly guy, is fishless cycling pointless? I'm 40 days in and still waiting for nitrite to fall. Fly guy, I would go out and buy myself a bottle of Fritz Zyme 7, dump it in there, and add a bunch of fish. Not a bunch, maybe 5 or 6. Maybe throw a little water conditioner. I mean, 40 days. I mean, that's why. I mean, Fritz also sells a product that where you can add ammonia. It's like a jumpstart, turbo start product, and that can help get things going. But you wouldn't do that with the fish in there. I think after 40 days, I would just go ahead and throw some fish in there along with some Fritz Zyme. Maybe, do you have any plants going? I mean, if the plants are looking healthy and they've stopped melting back, I mean, that's also a good sign, and they're going to help consume the ammonia. So, but yeah, 40 days, you're way more patient than I am. All right, so a couple real quick shout outs, and then we'll go ahead and get on to today's topic. Let's see here. I want to first and foremost acknowledge those of you who are members of the Garage Gang, and those are my monthly Patreon channel sponsors or channel supporters. Starts for as little as $3 a month, and the details are in the description. Thank you so much to all of you who are Patreons. And we have a new one that wasn't added. I'm going to have to add some recent Patreons onto this list. If your name is not on it, it just means that I just haven't added you yet, but I will, I promise. Also, a big shout out to a supporter of the channel, which is my friends over at the Aquarium Co-op. And that's Corey and Zenzo and the gang out there. Big shout out to them for all their help. They help me with things like filter media, food, plants, and things like that. Be sure to check out the Aquarium Co-op. And I've had good success with their stuff. And I've had the pleasure of meeting Corey in person. He really, he's the real deal. He's all in. If it was poker instead of fish, he would be someone who is all in. So check out my Amazon link if you shop on Amazon, and who doesn't. If you use this link to get to Amazon, whether you get anything from my store or not, anything you buy on Amazon will then give the channel a credit without increasing your cost 1 cent. So do consider using that to get to Amazon. It would be greatly appreciated. I know some of you do, because I do get some credit each month. It's a little bit, but every little bit helps. Also, big shout out to Josh over at Cunningham Tropicals, also a sponsor and helper of the channel. Thank you, Josh, for everything you do. And I also have another fish provider. Be sure to use that discount code, by the way. I also have another fish provider who is stepping up recently, and that is Beantown Aquatics. Fritz over at Beantown Aquatics contacted me and wants to do something. And as you know, some of the fish in here are from Beantown, and Mara Rocks, let me see. Several. Which are the ones I got from him? The deep water. Is the gar from Beantown? Anyway, several of these fish are from Beantown, and all the fish I got from him were top notch, and have done really well. Didn't have any problems with them. Beantown Aquatics. All right, so let's go ahead and do the official start. By the way, how's the AV? Is the picture and sound good? Do I have good picture and sound? Have one of you already given me an AV check and I didn't see it? Let me see. AV, audio, visual, how does it look? You know, I've been all good. Thank you, Proverbs. You know, I've been several minutes into a live stream and then realized that I hadn't started the live stream yet. So you missed some great points. But that has happened. Anybody who has ever live streamed knows what I'm talking about. It happens at least once. So today's video topic was inspired by two things. One, a question under one of my videos where somebody was saying that they were they were just kind of spinning. They were kind of so confused because of the different messages they were hearing from people about what is safe and what's not safe. With regards to, can I vacuum and do a water change at the same time? Can I service my filter and vacuum? Can I do a water change and rinse out the media in my? So they said they were just in a spin. They were just like they were getting 100 different answers, and that'll happen if you post a video showing how you do something, even though it's been successful for you, you'll get a dozen people saying that you're doing it wrong, that something is not right, that you should consider doing it differently. This is real common, and on YouTube, and this is why YouTubing isn't necessarily for everybody, because you got to have kind of a thick skin, because you're going to get a lot of opinions. Everybody has opinions, and so at any rate, they were just kind of in a spin. And the other thing that inspired the topic was a good friend of mine, someone a lot of you know here on the live stream, and they had a horrible occurrence with their tank, where they did what they normally do with their routine maintenance, what they've been doing for months. Went out to do something, came back, and 90% of the fish were dead. And I'm talking big, expensive fish. He was pretty devastated. So I just started thinking, okay, maybe it's time to talk about this topic. I've talked about it in other videos, of course. So let's get into it. And first of all, if something is wrong, you're probably going to get some kind of an indication that can be quick, which is one of the reasons why you don't want to do something major to an aquarium right before you leave. And I'm not saying anything that I talk about today is what my friend did. I mean, he had a lot of things going on, and I think we concluded that it had something to do with the local water treatment plant and moving to a free chlorine, a different type of chlorines. I don't know what it was, superchlorination of some kind. But at any rate, it's usually good advice when possible, not to immediately leave after doing something major. So, and I've extended this to include, like, if I'm going to go away for a long weekend, I have someone watching my tanks. Even though it's time to do a water change, I'll do the water change when I get back. The fish look good, they look healthy. You know, there's no indicators that, oh, it can wait. Rather than get a call while on vacation, hey, your fish are gasping at the surface, or they're gasping at the bottom, or they're turning over, or they're on their side, their fins are clamped, the water is cloudy. I mean, there's going to be some signs that something occurred. And those signs can include cloudy water, because you killed off bacteria, and now bacteria is coming back and blooming and exploding because of the additional ammonia. So you might get cloudy water. You'll get gasping fish at the top or at the bottom. If they're at the top, it's probably an oxygen issue. If it's at the bottom, you might have shocked them with either a temperature change, a rapid temperature change, or a shift in pH. Now, if you see these warning signs, what do? Well, you can certainly give the tank an extra dose of conditioner. Some of these conditioners, read the label, but you really can't overdose on them. So hitting it with additional conditioner, I mean, doing an extra water change, if the problem's coming from the tap, you might just aggravate the problem even more. So maybe just hitting it with some conditioner, maybe throwing in some bacteria, maybe throwing in some seeded filter media from another tank. That might help speed up and recover what's going on. And by the way, to the person that commented on the 40 days of fishless cycling, fly guy, get some media from somebody that has an established tank and get their filter media and squeeze it into your tank and give them back their media. That'll work. It'll work. So you'll get some tips if you're watching, if you're hanging around after the major maintenance. You will get some signs that'll tell you something is wrong. And that something is wrong might be for a variety of reasons, such as a major shift in temperature while you were filling the tank. You ran out of hot water. Somebody got into a hot shower. Somebody started the dishwasher or the clothes washer, and all of a sudden you're pouring cold water into your aquarium. Or it's been 6 weeks, for whatever reason, you were busy, you didn't have time, and it's been 6 weeks, maybe 2 months since your last water change. In that time period, because of minerals in the water, because of your substrate, because of detritus, whatever, the pH in your aquarium has shifted a bit. And so the pH of the water coming from your tap is going to be different. Now, if you do a large water change, well, I haven't done a water change for 6 weeks, so let me do one for 90%. No. If it's been 6 weeks, you're better off doing 2 water changes at 20 or 30%. So instead of 1 a week for 90%, it's been 6 weeks to 2 months. Your water parameters have shifted without question. Do 2 20-30% water changes, and fill slowly. Don't fill with a high blast. Fill slowly, and you're less likely to do the shock that can come from a pH shift. So, just something to keep in mind. Now, I should do this more. We probably all should do it more. If you're on a municipal water source, which most of us are, some of us out there on wells, good idea to go to their website and see if they have any major maintenance going on, any major changes in how they're treating their water. And if they're right in the middle of a major change, hold off on your water change. As an additional safeguard, not a bad idea to do an occasional test of your tap. Things can get into the pipes. A lot of factors can happen. A tap test is not a bad thing to do. You can do it pretty quickly. You can do it with some strips. Now, I have heard talk about massive differences between strip test results and master test kit results. I ran into that. So what do you trust? I think you have to trust, first and foremost, you have to trust, how do the fish look? Number one. Number two, you would think the master test kit is accurate. Be sure to look at the expiration date on that test kit. Be sure that you're doing it exactly per the instructions, including the agitating of the tubes, for 2 minutes, and the instructions have to be followed exactly. And but I tell you, I once did a video a while back on a variety of test kits, and every time the master test kit tested high on nitrates. And my conclusion, which I'm sure did not endear me to API, was that they're trying to sell conditioner. So they're trying to scare me into going out and buying a bunch of conditioner. But at any rate, now there's a moving part in all of this that has to be taken into consideration, and that is the age of the aquarium. The older aquarium, especially the older aquarium with a deep substrate of 4 inches or so, 3 inches to 5 inches in there. That's what I'm calling a deep substrate. Some people run 6 to 10 inches. But the older aquarium with a deep substrate is going to be more bulletproof, because that substrate, assuming that you don't do real deep vacuuming. I do very light surface vacuuming. I don't go deep into my substrate. I want the stuff that's deep in the substrate to be a home, like a form of media. And so an aquarium that's, let's say, been running for 9 months, and it has a deep substrate, and you do routine maintenance on hang-on back filters or canisters or whatever, you do water changes, but you leave the substrate relatively alone, it's going to be pretty stable. You're going to be able to vacuum and do a water change. After about 1.5 years, you're probably going to be able to vacuum, water change, and service your filters, and you're probably not going to have much of a problem. Your fish are going to be okay. And you're going to be able to rinse your media in tap water. You're going to have no problem at all, because your substrate is housing such a rich colony of beneficial bacteria. It's not going to really have a problem. You're not going to have a problem. Now, a younger aquarium, your aquarium's under 6 months, or, and this applies even to a larger aquarium, you've just added a large number of fish. And so the aquarium is catching up to an increased bioload. Under those circumstances, no, don't go and do a whole bunch of things at once, because you have a fragile beneficial bacteria foundation, one that's being challenged by the addition of fish, a large number. You've added 6 or more fish, or it's too young and hasn't really become what Corey at the co-op likes to call seasoned. Your tank isn't seasoned. So these are some of the things that have to be taken into consideration and will help you to kind of figure out, because the frustration, and certainly the frustration my friend was experiencing, was not knowing why. Why the crash? Why did I lose 90% of my fish after what I do every single time? I've done it this way for months. I haven't had a bad outcome. Why suddenly a 90% loss of fish? And not knowing why, it was driving him crazy. And the treatment plant went to what they're calling, I think it was called free chlorine. So we can get some comfort in knowing that might have been the reason. Are we sure? I don't know. But we get some comfort, but it doesn't really make up for losing 90% of very large, very expensive fish. So the 3 things, what do we see? We see fish shock, fish going into shock, showing you signs of shock, gasping at the bottom, tilting, turning over, hanging out the top. And these things are usually pH, temperature, or beneficial bacteria disruption issues. A beneficial bacteria disruption issue is a spike. It can also be called a spike in ammonia that is not being consumed by the beneficial bacteria, and will not be consumed until the beneficial bacteria can rally and come back from that. Now, again, you're going to get more bulletproof the older the tank, assuming you haven't added a whole bunch of new fish, and you're also going to be relatively bulletproof the bigger the tank. The bigger the tank, the more wiggle room, the more forgiveness that you'll have, right? Dilution is the solution to pollution, right? You've heard that. Dilution and pollution, which is not really sustainable over a long period of time, as we're seeing with certain lakes and oceans and, things like that. But it does work to some degree with your larger tanks. My 300 gallon, my 210, my 90 are a bit more bulletproof, even though I did have an after maintenance die off in my 90 gallon when it was just set up. I got a little bit overzealous and I did too much. We're talking a few years ago, but I lost some beautiful fish. It started with a little bit of foggy water, and there was bacteria was blooming because it was catching up to an ammonia spike. Now, by the time you notice something is wrong and test, and the bacteria might have caught up and has gotten the ammonia back down to 0. But your fish are still tipping over and dying from the ammonia shock. This can be the case with an oxygen depletion. Let's say you filled the tank, the temperature went way up for some reason. For some reason, your hot water heater kicked in, went into overdrive, and you were putting 95-degree water into the aquarium. Your fish all start gasping at the top, tipping over and dying because there's no dissolved oxygen in the water. You panic, you don't know what's going on. You test the water. The test results are perfect. And then the fish stop dying because the water temperature drops, the oxygen level increases, there's enough oxygen to sustain the survivors, and now you're scratching your head saying, What the heck just happened? Well, you had a sudden decrease in oxygen. This can happen when whatever it is you're using to break up surface tension stops, whether it's pumps, your returns on your canisters, an HOB that stops breaking up the surface, and you have an oxygen die-off. And then they stop dying. And you go, what? What's going on? My test results are perfect. The remaining fish are all perfect. Yeah, the aquarium got to the level of oxygen that could sustain the survivors. I speak from experience. I had that happen. It was no fun. All right. Let's see here. Now, just so you know, I do not do, and if you're doing this and you're having success, carry on. Carry on. But my water changes are normally 20 to 40%. If I had $1 for every time I've heard of a disaster that just followed a water change. Now, if your water treatment plant started doing something different and you did a 20% water change instead of a 90, there's a chance that you would have survived it. Now, that's also assuming that you condition your tank for the full volume of the aquarium. I always condition for the full volume of the aquarium, not for the amount of water I changed. And there's some science behind it. The additives that they put on in the water are designed to condition everything it comes in contact with, so it's going to affect all the water, not just the amount it's not as clear cut as condition for 20% if I'm changing 20. No. I suggest that you always condition for the full volume of your aquarium. That's just me. Make sure I got everything. I got some notes. You know me. I like to keep notes. All right. So let's go ahead and open this up to some Q&A. I know you folks have been carrying on some conversations here. Let's see what's on your mind. By the way, if I missed a super chat, I wasn't looking at the chat. But I'm going to take a look at your questions. Also, if I didn't say hi to you, it's because I didn't see you. But Chad is in the house. Chad Calloway. Hey, Chad. Chad is having, it looks like, is having an aggression issue. Stability is a good product. I like it, Chad. I've had a lot of success with Fritz, so I do kind of lean towards Fritz Zyme products, the Fritz Zyme products. But stability is a good product. You can't go wrong with that. Yeah, keep an eye on that. I mean, both of those fish could probably inflict a lot of damage on each other. And unfortunately, it might happen while you're not watching. I would just definitely keep them well fed. Now, in the genes, I've heard this a lot. I like to age age my water by filling Rubbermaid tub with water a few days before I do a water change. Now keep in mind that chloramine, right? The chlorine products and things like that, they will gas off, but chloramine is designed not to gas off. Just something to keep in mind. If your water is coming in treated with chloramine, not chlorine, but chloramine. Romaine, I do not have ammonia coming out of. My tap tests super low on everything. It's actually pretty decent water. We were going to put a home water treatment system in, but the test results came back pretty good. So we're kind of like on the border. Hey, Shane. Good afternoon from Motown. Do you know Motown was practically all I listened to growing up? Temptations and Supremes, Four Tops. What a an unbelievable stable of musicians. Daniel had a bunch of pearl weed. Suddenly died. All the big fish died, but the little guys all survived. Dead plants, dead fish. And that is something to consider, because anything dead and decomposing will increase ammonia. Now, in a seasoned tank with a lot of plants, the ammonia will quickly get absorbed. Plants love ammonia. The reason you have less nitrates in a planted tank is because the ammonia is consumed. The plants prefer the ammonia to the nitrite. But yeah, anything dead or dying is going to. But a heavily planted plant, like if you listen to Father Fish, he says that in one of his heavily planted, dirted tanks, a little fish dies. He doesn't remove it. He pushes them into the substrate and lets them serve as a natural nutrient. Of course, if you have plecos, they get skeletonized, right? They get cannibalized immediately. Thank you, Chad. I appreciate that, my friend. Very nice of you. Very nice of you to say that. Well, you know, Whip, that's the key, isn't it? You know, we try, and how many of us in the hobby have learned the hard way? And the difference between those of us still in the hobby and those of us who have left the hobby is sort of our tolerance for pain and hard knocks. Because a lot of us have learned through setbacks. We learned the hard way. And we have a takeaway, right? We come away with something that we learned. And when you can't figure out what happened, you don't have that takeaway. Now, even with a takeaway, it still hurts to lose a boatload of fish. I mean, you can't, you know, it's like having an old, I mean, when my grandma died, she was 99, and her last 6 months were she really wasn't around. She was kind of on, you know, sort of on life support, and so you're kind of relieved. But at the same time, it's still upsetting. It's still upsetting. You still know why. You still feel it was the best thing when she finally did it. But and you understand it, but you still have the loss. Shane, that's a real good question. I think what you're asking is the beneficial bacteria that you brought over, is that going to, you see, you're only going to have as much beneficial bacteria as your stock can feed. This is the fallacy in people trying to have a more stable tank or more beneficial bacteria by having 6 canister filters. You're only going to have as much beneficial bacteria as your feeding and fish waste can keep alive. So I'm not sure if I can give you a time when you could be able to safely remove those things. My suggestion would be to, and it's going to sound nuts. I mean, if you want to, I mean, if you have a sump on there, let's say, and you want to take the FX6 off, I would probably pull the media out of that FX6 and squeeze it into the sump. You can get a lot of that good, dark, bacteria-rich material into the sump. I would definitely condition the tank when I'm doing it. Maybe even add some Fritz 7 while I'm doing it. But it's an interesting question. I don't know if there's a definitive transition point, because I'm not sure that the bacteria is actually going to transfer out of the FX6 into the aquarium. You are going to get beneficial bacteria in the aquarium, but the truth is it's probably going to stay in your FX6. So I would probably do an FX6 maintenance, but instead of rinsing in the sink, rinse it into your sump. Just do something like that. But I mean, what I do is I bring over media, I pull media out of a seated filter or a sump, and I drop it into whatever it is I'm going to be using on the new aquarium. And that's usually how I get it going. Like right now, I have maybe a dozen inserts for an Expertmatic internal filter in the sump under the 210 gallon. And those will be put into an Expertmatic, and then that internal filter will go on an aquarium and remain on the aquarium, a brand new aquarium. So that's an interesting question. And certainly if you took it off without rinsing the media into a sump, if you just took it off without replacing after, let's say, a month or two, I would definitely be testing that aquarium. Watch for any cloudiness. Add conditioner. Throw a little bit of Fritz in there just as a safeguard, but watch it closely. Don't pull it off and go on vacation. Great question, by the way. Michael agrees. Condition for 100%. That's going to save. Between that and doing perhaps smaller water changes, filling slowly, you're almost going to be tank crash proof. Almost. Whip, I run my lights about maybe 6 hours a day, 3 in the morning, 3 at night. Maybe 7, maybe 4 at night, 3 in the morning, 4 at night. They come on about 7:30, They go off at about 10:30. They come back on at about 6. They're on till about 9, 10, yeah, somewhere in there. On a timer. So Chad agrees on the smaller water change if after changing for a long time. Yeah, the inclination is going to be, it's been a long time, let me do a big water change, and you're just asking for problems. You're just asking to shock your fish. So it's counterintuitive, but it's what is suggested. Do a smaller water change twice a week after having missed a water change or two. Michael, I am currently cleaning my fish room to prepare for moving my bedroom to my fish room. I don't see why you'd have a problem, but I guess, are you referring to the reason why you're moving out of your bedroom and into your fish room? Did you upset your spouse and have been kicked? Were you told to choose between your spouse or your fish, and you picked your fish? And you know I'm messing with you. Chad likes deep substrate. Now you see, this is where Father Fish and I are in perfect alignment. And hello to you, Father Fish. Thank you for joining the live stream. A deep substrate is your best media. A deep substrate that you don't mess with is your best biomedia. It's stable, you leave it alone, it's a perfect environment for bacteria to grow in. Now, if you have a dirted tank with a lot of plants, you're getting into a very good, a very healthy ecosystem. And in his case, he's adding leaves, local pond material. It is a thriving ecosystem below the surface of your substrate. And so that serves as the backbone. So you pull out sponges, you rinse them, you rinse your biomedia, but the substrate, you just basically leave it alone. And it just rocks. It just rocks. And the one thing you hear sometimes is, well, gee, aren't you going to get gas pockets? And apparently that was a wives' tale that was circulating around for years. And those gas pockets, if you do get a little sulfur or something, it's going to bubble to the surface and gas off. It's not going to necessarily kill your fish. And I think what happened was, I think some folks had some die-offs and then messed with their substrate and saw gas and said, oh, gas must have killed, bad gas must have killed my fish. It wasn't necessarily a causation. It was just an observation. Now, Whip, have you tried a layer of dirt under a sand cap, or even some of the like fluval dirt? And I mean, there's a lot of different products you can buy that you can then sand cap, and then drop some of those aquarium co-op tabs hit it with a little fertilizer. I use that liquid pump. I mean, have you tried all of that? And do you have fish that are plant destroyers? I mean, those are all very key factors. But because you think there'd be a plant that could grow in just about any kind of water. And I've in my discus tank, I've got an assortment of plants. I've had some melt back and die off, but an assortment of plants that I think I've arrived at that will thrive in a high temp. A high temp, medium pH. I mean, so there's a little bit of hit and miss. You got to try a little bit of hit and miss. Kendall, there's a reason why fish get certain names. There's a reason why a convict is called a convict. And it sounds like your convict needs to go do a little hard time. If that behavior continues, I would remove that fish from your aquarium. It sounds like she's clearing out the territory in preparation for laying, for breeding, which occurs quite frequently with convicts. I think they're considered like guppies. They're considered the rabbits of the hobby. So you've got some tough choices to make. You may have to rehome that fish. I am looking at the chat as we speak. I'm not just sitting here mesmerized. Let me see here. Yeah, Don, that's going to save you some grief, I think. And I'll tell you why. It'll save you grief in the event that your local water treatment plant did something weird. Because what they add is formulated to actually condition everything it comes in contact with. So when you add some to the aquarium, it's not, if you condition your 5-gallon bucket and then add it with that, the stuff that's in that 5-gallon bucket may actually hit the rest of the tank. It's designed to do that. Now, you can argue that, wait a minute, once it's conditioned and locked up, isn't it conditioned and locked up? I don't know. Do you want to take that chance? So, yeah, I think you're better off just conditioning for the full volume. Yeah, Chad, you know why I became, the reason I became a Fritz believer was, I was always, I used Seachem Prime products for years, had great results with Seachem Prime, but I became a Fritz believer when I had an outbreak of colomaris from a poorly handled quarantine. I quarantined, I hurried up a quarantine, I introduced colomaris into an aquarium, and the only thing that stopped it was a Marison product from Fritz. Everything else was a waste of time, and the disease just kept getting worse and worse. Fritz Marison 2 stopped it cold. So at that point, I became a Fritz believer. Yeah, okay, Kendall. Yeah, it looks like you've already done the right step. I mean, you know my philosophy on jerkfish. You take them to the local fish store and let them know what's going on, and wish them well. Okay, sounds like Whip has tried just about everything. Yeah, all I can say, Whip, is that I was a notorious plant killer. I was plants were my tanks were where the place plants would go to die. And it's only more recently that I've, mostly by listening to some of the plant discussions at the aquarium co-op and Father Fish and people like that. I mean, I've listened to what I understand meltback. I understand hit and miss, trying plants, battling and racing with black algae and things like that. I mean, let me show you the discus tank. Hold on one second. Now, if you would have told me a few years ago that I would have a tank with that kind of situation going on, both with healthy discus and with healthy plants that are winning, out racing black algae for nutrients, I would not have believed it, because I was just a horrible plant killer. But you can see that aquarium is now just looking good. And it was hit and miss. It was adding enough plants to really race, outpace the black algae. Now the aquarium right next to it, what I commonly refer to as my planted, let's see if I can get over to it. So that's the planted community, and it's become rock stable as a planted tank. My the lilies have gone insane. I've got about 12 lilies floating at the surface. Jungle Val, it took like 5 tries, but I finally have Jungle Val. That's growing right in the middle, wrapping itself around that piece of wood, which I think is just beautiful. I've got some Anubias in there. Crips. And that's where my rams are going to go. Right now I've got little ember tetras, I've got rummy nose, rasboras, a group of corycats, a lot of snails. But both the tanks you saw have a lot of substrate, and the substrate is pretty much left alone. It serves as the key as the key component of biological media. But again, if you had told me a couple years ago that I'd have a healthy planted tank, I would have probably laughed and said, nope, not me. Now, a lot of plants have been replaced, over the last year. some plants have died back. I mean, it took a while. It took a while to get it going. And since we're spinning around, I'll show you the other tanks just for the heck of it. That's the 90. The possible future home of the discus. I don't know why, but that electric blue Ochart has just really blossomed recently. I know that I've been feeding them some of these worms. Premium earthworm pellets. I get them from Josh over at Cunningham Tropicals. The red spotted gold severum is completely addicted to them. They're like crack for him. And the other fish were able to get in there and get a few too, including the redhead tapajos. But that's been the only real change. You can see the Congos in there. They'll come to the front if they think they're going to get fed. They've already been fed. Drop a few in there. You can see the redhead tapajos are looking great. Of course, that red spotted gold severum is outrageous. The South American tank has a lot of light fixtures in front of it for the live stream, but I'll turn the camera around and show you a close up of that tank as well. Sorry about the light stand there right on the right side there, but you can see these guys are thriving. Big red tiger Oscar, red shoulder severum, likes to challenge the Salvini, that female Salvini with that beautiful red belly. Geo's looking good. The silver dollar ditherfish, every single one of them is still surviving in there. The electric blue Ochart in this tank is just absolutely stunning. Of course, I got a couple chocolates in there. There's a vieja in the bottom left. Let me see if I can get the electric blue Ochart to come over. They were fed before the stream, so they're sort of interested. That's a 210-gallon aquarium. It's got a sump on it, a 40-gallon sump, and a Sun 704B. Very deep substrate. No live plants, but a lot of wood. That's a big chunk of wood that I harvested from a local lake here, running across the top. There's about 3 or 4 inches of sand or small particle gravel covered by some river pebbles. But the geo works under the pebbles and gets all the sand that it needs to be able to sift, which is what geos love doing, of course. You really can't see the rams from this perspective, but the rams are over this shoulder right here, and they're doing great, along with those 5 autos that I just picked up. So that's actually they're in quarantine, and it looks like I might be getting some additional fish from Fritz over at Beantown Aquatics, and we'll see what I do with those. All right, let's take a look at some of your comments. Joy of fish keeping. No dirt in my tanks. Amazing plant growth on gravel. The proof is in the pudding. Yeah, you know, when you talk to Corey, I mean, that's what he does. He loves gravel, and his planted tanks are very, very, very lush. In some cases, too lush. He spends a lot of time cutting them back, and it's all gravel. It's all gravel. You mentioned Joy of Fish Keeping water changes. My discus tank gets a minimum of 2 water changes a week, and the water changes tend to be about 30%, and I do vacuum. And then once every 3 to 4 weeks, I service one of the hang-on back filters. There's also a UV killing machine, the biggest unit they make. I think it's 29 watts. That's also on there. All right. So all that being said, unless anyone has any final questions or comments, I think we're on the hour. We're actually over the hour. And I don't want to tie up your whole weekend. It looks like we have a storm coming in here in Nashville. I'm going to make sure that my power backups are charged. I have an uninterrupted power supply that's 3,500 watts, and then I have a smaller 500 watt unit that I can use in a pinch, and then I got a big giant 13 or 12,000 watt generator that runs on propane. Hopefully I don't have to use the propane generator, but I do have the small ones that can hold me for a few hours in a pinch if we do have a power outage. Javar to you? Is that how you say that? I'm setting up a new tank. Black blasting sand. The only reason I don't use black blasting sand is because it is designed to blast. So in other words, it's designed to be abrasive, and because I have fish that sift sand, I didn't want to risk damage to their lips or gills. So I usually use sand that's been tumbled or is doesn't really have a lot of sharp edges like your Carib Sea. So that's the only reason I don't. But you know what? If you do a survey out there, you'll find that there's thousands of fish keepers using everything from play sand to black blasting sand. So I don't think you'd have a problem with that if it's something you want to use. Joy of fish keeping, likes the fact how I'm doing the water changes, and likes the idea of UV. Yeah, I think the UV is making a difference. I mean, some people would say you need a more powerful one, but UV is a bit misunderstood. It doesn't kill necessarily what goes by it. It only gets what's in the water column. It doesn't get what's settled or inside the fish. It changes DNA so that the viruses, bacteria can't replicate, but it doesn't necessarily kill them. It changes them so they can't duplicate. So it's a very unique kind of way of handling things. But all I can say is that I've never had this level of success with discus, and all 10 of them are still doing great. I picked them up from Josh at Cunningham Tropicals. They were hardy to begin with. That makes a big difference, starting with good stock. They went into a tank with a seasoned substrate that had a lot of beneficial bacteria living in it. So I'm not going to really change anything in that tank. And my only big concern about that tank is how do I carry over smoothly the successful things of that aquarium into their new home. So that's going to be the challenge, because they are going to need a bigger tank. 10 discus in a 55-gallon is not sustainable. So, all right. All that being said, I think we're at a point now where we should go ahead and wrap up. I want to thank all of you for joining me today. You folks are the best. And thank you to my subscribers. To those of you who are helping me to get up over 60,000, that's going to be a momentous time to get up over 60,000. I remember hoping I could get to 100. 60,000 just seems so awesome to me, and I want to thank all of you for helping me to get there. Thank you for the subscribing, the thumbs up, the sharing. I know a lot of you share my videos, and thank you to my moderators. And I think that's it for me. Thank you, Father Fish, for sitting in. Always appreciated. Salient, thank you, my friend, for being a moderator. And of course, Whip World. I know, were there other moderators here today? Let me see. Salient and Whip Swirl were the two doing the heavy lifting. So thank you, my friends. You're the best. And watch for upcoming videos. And I'll see you next week. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye. Bye.